and welcome to another exciting episode of That's Wild. Good evening and welcome to the Lowveld of South Africa for this exciting episode of That's Wild. Of course, yesterday was my favorite animals day, World Wild Dog Day. So today we have a very special guest live in studio with us. It's none other than Grant Beverley from the Endangered Wildlife Trust. Hello, Grant.
Hello, Brent. Thank you for having me again.
Nice to have you
to
here.
all the viewers and followers.
And of course, Grant's favorite animal, the same as mine, and that is the wild dog.
It is indeed.
And wild dogs is something you've been working with a few years? Just a few?
A couple of years. Started at EWT in 2009, so 14 years this year, and have been involved with you almost since the beginning.
Yeah, we have. It's been quite a crazy ride. But obviously, there's so much positives happening with wild dogs in the Lowveld at the moment. But we're just going to chat a little bit about your background. Your first project, you were based in Kruger itself, weren't you?
Yes, that's right. So, Endangered Wildlife Trust had been doing a photographic census in collaboration with SANParks every 5 years since 1989, 1990. So, fast forward to my first introduction to wild dogs in the Endangered Wildlife Trust was the results of the 2008-2009 photographic census. And that was unfortunately at a time where the wild dogs were at an all-time low in the Kruger and within the greater Kruger, with only 120 adults. So that was the sort of start of my path with wild dogs in Kruger, where we started actually looking at what were the potential drivers of population decline. Could it potentially be as a result of human-wildlife conflict or risks that they were facing outside of the protected area? So in 2010, I did an interview questionnaire survey looking at the attitudes and perceptions of private ranchers, private game farmers outside the western boundary of Kruger. And that's where the journey started.
Sure, 14 years with wild dogs. That's and obviously wild dogs still obviously remain your favorite and main focus, but obviously you are now responsible for other species and other sort of projects in the greater Kruger Lowveld area.
Yeah, 100%. So obviously as Endangered Wildlife Trust separated into programs, we've got the Carnivore Conservation Program, which although the historical focus has been on cheetah and wild dogs, the two most threatened carnivores in South Africa, we have expanded to a project on lions in Kruger National Park, also involved with the leopard project, where leopards were introduced into areas that they previously occurred, but there were human-wildlife conflict incidences, so we collaborated on that. And then also the cheetah photographic census in Kruger, which has been running a similar length of time to the wild dog project in Kruger, but we're starting to look more closely as to what could potentially be affecting that population in Kruger as well.
It's a very important population. It's the largest single population of cheetahs in a protected area in the world.
100%. And interesting differences between cheetah and wild dog, although both similarly subordinate carnivores to the other larger carnivores, wild dog and cheetah face very similar trials and tribulations against the other carnivores, so important to focus on them as well, as with both of them being vulnerable or endangered species.
Absolutely amazing. Now we're talking about you said there were 130 wild dogs left in the whole of Kruger 2009-ish, and now we're sitting 14 years later, and we're sitting on how many now?
370 is the most recent count. Look, and it's not exactly comparable because we've increased the focal monitoring, but we've also just finished the photographic census, the latest photographic census, which ran in 21-22, and the numbers are over 350 plus minus 30 odd individuals because of the different techniques. But yeah, still more than 200 individuals, or increase of more than 200 individuals since I started the project in 2009.
And even in the last couple of years, since we've been working with you from a Painted Dog TV point of view, I mean, when we started, how many packs more or less were collared in Greater Kruger and Kruger?
Yeah, so when we started in 2016 around there, and that was when we really upped the number of packs that were collared following a canine distemper outbreak. And still even then, it was only around 10 to 15 packs that were collared. We've got over 50 individual packs now. And in 2016, there were only a maximum of 30 packs that we were intending on focusing on. So even the number of packs has increased, which is a good indication that the population is doing well. Particularly when a large pack, which has popularly been referred to as the Orphan Super Pack over the years, that pack is split into multiple different packs. And I think later in the show, we're going to speak about what we've been doing in the last couple of weeks. And we actually followed up on one of those packs, So the indication that the population is doing well, when a large pack splits into 3 or 4 smaller packs or family units, the population is doing well.
And that's amazing. We've seen it close to Rietspruit. I mean, there's packs in the Air Force Base. There's quite a few packs now in Kaseri, Beverley, Timbavati, and Thornybush. And there's a very special pack, but we'll talk about them a little bit later because we got to catch up with an old friend this week as well. But that's incredible. And then, as you said, there's 57 packs or so in Kruger. And then I think you've got collars on
50. We've got collars on 50
packs. Isn't that absolutely incredible? 50 packs have been collared. And I know you and Louis are working hard to get the last 7.
Yeah, look, at the effort to continue to collar individuals or packs is ongoing and continual. But myself and Louis van Skalkwyk, the state vet in Kruger, have been working together on this wild dog project since 2016, since the disease outbreak, the canine distemper outbreak. And it's an ongoing effort, but, we're reaping the rewards of the ongoing work. So that's not many conservation sort of focuses can say that there's strong positive outcomes from the interventions. So we won't stop anytime soon.
Amazing. Now, quite a few people are wondering about our history together and where we met and whatnot. I think, Maddie, do we have a photo? There we go.
Oh, geez. That was in 2010, I think.
Yeah, 2009, 2010, somewhere there. In the Sabi Sands.
In the Sabi Sands.
Both of us were. Look at that steamy Grant.
Definitely
no grey
hairs. Definitely more than 14 years of chasing wild dogs ago. That was.
So we met at a mutual friend's birthday party in the Sabi Sands Game Reserve.
Yep.
And then we've just sort of stayed friends. And obviously, with my love of wild dogs and whatnot, we've stayed in contact. And obviously, all living in this part of the world, it's a relatively small community, and particularly with like-minded individuals. So. It's been quite fun to be able to watch the project grow and spend that time with you and the dogs.
And likewise with Painted Dog TV. I mean, I think our passion for wild dogs was always going to collide and bring us together. But we've done some amazing things over the years, and amazing support from the followers that continue to watch, from the viewers that continue to watch. And love to see what we do, which is, it's a passion of mine as well, to show people what we do and what conservation is about.
So, and in that spirit, later on at the end of the show, there is going to be an auction, and we will discuss the reason for the need of some additional funding shortly, or towards the end of the show. There's a whole section we'll be focusing on the poaching or the snaring pandemic that's happening around this area at the moment. But we have a print that we will be able to auction for, and kindly as well, for whoever gets the print, remembering wildlife. So Margot has kindly donated a book to go. So if you do win the auction for the print, you will also get a Remembering Wild Dogs book. So a big thank you to Remembering Wildlife for that. Thanks, Grant. And of course, how the auction's going to work is how we've done it similarly in the past. At the end of the show, on the main YouTube chat, we'll run the auction there for tonight, and then there will be the ability for people who might miss the auction live for 24 hours to actually bid via email. But we will go into that detail a little bit later towards the end of the show. But very, very exciting stuff, and we can't wait to help wild dogs some more. And now we've just finished the first moment of the show, so let's go to a break. welcome back, everyone. So we're going to be chatting about what we've been up to in the last couple of weeks. We've been fortunate enough to go out twice with Grant in the last couple of weeks. First time we went into Kruger looking for part of that open super pack.
Yeah, one of the packs, as I mentioned, that is split into a few smaller packs, and they've been denning. Obviously, wild dogs den during the winter months in southern Africa, so I hadn't seen them since they had left the den. So it was important for us to follow up on the pack and just see how the puppies are doing now that they're mobile with the pack. And obviously then leading up to World Wild Dog Day yesterday, you joined so we could see if we could.
Yes, that's the footage that's on now. And that was on Thursday. Wednesday. So we were very, very lucky to be allowed to go to an incredible part of the Timbavati Private Game Reserve. We were at Makanye Private Lodge, which is spectacular in its own right. And they currently have that pack. You saw those puppies now on screen. They're about 6 weeks old.
Yeah, 6 weeks old.
And they've had quite a bit of an interesting journey over the last...
Yeah, they've had a very interesting journey, and something that, the textbooks, and we always say that animals don't read the textbooks, and although it has been fairly well published in scientific literature, and in this particular case, more than one female had a litter of pups. And what was interesting is that the beta female had her pups before the alpha female in a separate den, and then the alpha female actually, unfortunately, started killing off the beta female's pups. And that's often what would have been the case historically even, is that if there is more than one female that gives birth to pups, the alpha female will often kill those pups, and it's a group benefit decision. So the alpha female or the pack is deciding that it's so many mouths to feed, and the number of times they have to go out and hunt to feed those pups is just physically taxing on the pack. So it is fairly common. Sad for obviously an endangered species to happen, but for the rangers and the guards who have watched that play out, it really is interesting behavior. And the second litter that was born by the alpha female are now flourishing as a result.
And quite late in the year.
Very late in the year, yeah. In fact, this year's denning season's been quite interesting in terms of how spread out it's been. We had packs that were giving birth to litters as early as April, which is really early, and then now into August, pups that are still emerging from the den. So it's been an interesting denning season. We've recorded 21 packs now that have had puppies. So once again, it could be a bumper crop for the number of wild dogs that are added to the population. But we only record pups after, in terms of the account, after they've reached a year old, because pup survival rate in the first year is so low, which we've already started seeing from the number of packs across the Kruger. Lions still the largest cause of wild dog mortality, particularly in the first year. But with the collars now, and technology, we're able to follow them from a lot earlier on, with camera traps up at the den, seeing when wild dog pups are emerging for the first time, and following them quite closely throughout that first couple of months of their lives.
And some of that camera trap footage is, hopefully we are going to get some of it in the not too distant future. But it shows that other predators visit the den. Leopards, hyenas,
pythons, we've had pythons, yeah. And then even, which we will show in a couple of weeks' time, it's been amazing to see insights into the other animals that go into the den, like warthogs, for example. Yeah. So at Makanye, it's been a couple of times that the warthogs sharing the same hole that the wild dogs are utilizing, and watching that interaction where, you can't sit at a den for 24 hours. Now there's technology and camera traps enable us to watch. I could sit
at a den for 24 hours.
I'm sure we could, yeah.
It'd be nice. Imagine having enough time to go sit at a den. Just sit at 24 hours a den. Oh, these guys were just too cute. And it was actually really, really special afternoon. We can chat a bit more about the pups now, but I got very excited. So the first ever pack that was live collared.
Yes.
In Thornybush. It was a very beautiful young female. How old was she when we collared her?
She was just over 2 years old. In 2021.
Yeah. So she's
the beta female of the pack who gave birth
to that second pack. So while we were sitting looking at those incredible little puppies, all of a sudden we heard a
commotion,
dying baby or diker.
Yeah.
And then
splashing of water, hyenas going crazy.
Hyenas making noise, probably about 100 meters, 150 meters from the den. So we rushed there, and we were lucky enough to witness this sighting. It was really incredible. And there you can see she is, with that very distinct white patch on her. So that is the female that we we collared 3 years ago. 3 years ago. Oh, and dogs. I mean, look at that. You can hear actually Grant, I think, talking about their cooperative strategy for dealing with hyenas.
100%, yeah. So, I mean, wild dogs and hyenas are eternal enemies, but they actually don't kill each other all that often. They sort of tolerate each other, and the only time there's really aggressive interaction is when there's a kill or when there's food involved. But almost all the packs of wild dogs in Greater Kruger National Park have a clan or at least a couple of individual hyenas following them. So they interact quite often, but the dogs still are going to want their meal back. But this was an amazing interaction and sighting that we watched, and just illustrates what wild dogs pack, the strength in numbers in terms of the pack, allowing them to take that kill back from the hyena.
Forgive the shaky footage. I was filming on the big lens handheld because everything happened so quickly.
And even after all the years of Brent following wild dogs, still gets excited about your favorite animal.
I do. I get too excited. I was very, very excited. Yeah. And it is a thing. I can't wait. One of these days we're going to have a resident pack for a while, at least a den on the Rietspruit, I hope.
Hopefully so.
Hopefully so. But and just again to see the interactions between the wild dogs and hyenas is definitely one of my favorite things to watch. Actually, wild dogs with everything is pretty exciting, except lions. Don't like seeing wild dogs and lions together.
No, and of course, and just to mention in terms of hopefully having a pack again, obviously EWT does coordinate the Wild Dog Range expansion project, and we've been involved with Painted Dog TV, with capturing of dogs and relocating them to other areas, and then vice versa with them coming into areas that Painted Dog TV is operating on. So hopefully in the near future, again, a pack of wild dogs will become available for Rietspruit.
Yeah, I know I won't be the only person who's very excited. Wild dogs also happen to be my dad's favorite animal. Yeah, but yes, so I mean that pack has done really well.
They have, and in an area that's got a high density of other predators. And in fact, part of the reason why they decided to den where they den this year, which is off Thorny Bush, where the pack has been denning in the last couple of years, is just the movement and density of lions. Yeah. So it's interesting how wild dogs choose to den in areas where there's a lower lion density, because lions are the biggest form of natural mortality.
Yeah, it's very disturbing. I've unfortunately seen it a few times where
when you've done it for long enough, you're going to see lions killing wild dogs. But that's part of nature, and that's where, once again, the focus, even from a conservation point of view, that we only focus or intervene when a cause of mortality or injury is not natural. So if it's a human-induced cause of mortality or injury, that's when we try and intervene.
And that is something we are going to be discussing in quite some depth later on in the show. The big human issue at the moment. Yeah. And it is quite a sad story, but we will cover that as best we can a little bit later. But yeah, I'm very excited about those puppies, and that pack has done so well. And then of course in Kruger, that other pack, I mean, so we had puppies of 6 weeks. And then we had puppies of nearly 6. Well, no, 5 months, 4 months.
Yeah, 3.5 months old. Yeah, so they just started leaving the den and started moving with the pack, and we saw that interaction and behaviour as well, which is once again following wild dogs over such a long period. You get these different stages of their lives and see what's so important, And for a pack of wild dogs, the next generation really is important for that pack to thrive and sustain themselves. So seeing those pups when they first emerge from the den, and then being able to, through the use of the collar and technology, be able to follow them, it is amazing to see. And then that behavior as well, in terms of, we saw the interaction with the dogs going off to hunt, and the pups go off on their own, and the adults
puppies try to chase a hyena.
They did.
Yeah, it was crazy. These tiny little puppies running off down the road after a hyena. But yeah, so we're very, very privileged to be able to watch this, and of course the fact that the population has grown back to a nice big size is really, really positive for the area. Yeah. And positive for range expansion projects into other parts of Africa, hopefully later in there. So Grant and I have spoken a little bit about where would be a good place to take wild dogs. Yeah. But we will be chatting about that a little bit later, because it is time now for Grant and I to have a little break while you enjoy what is coming up on Painted Dog TV. welcome back. And of course, we've done some incredible stuff with Grant over the years, and we're going to take a look at probably one of the most unique things I've ever done with catching wild dogs.
Likewise, it was my first. You know, sometimes we try and portray that, oh, yeah, no, we do this all the time, but it's always going to be first.
And I mean, it hasn't been used that often.
No, particularly not in the Greater Kruger National Park area. They've used it quite a lot in KZN. In more densely vegetated areas, it's easier. But I mean, we've done a couple of world firsts with Painted Dog TV, and this was certainly one of them in terms of filming it. Yeah,
so to give everyone a little bit of sort of backstory to this, there was a pack of wild dogs that moved outside of the Greater Kruger into a game farm area where the farmers sort of rely on the impalas and whatnot for their livelihood, and they didn't want this pack of dogs to be there eating all the impalas. But this pack was particularly skittish. So it wasn't, you couldn't sort of drive up and dart like we normally do.
Which we had tried. I mean, you always, in terms of the techniques to capturing wild dog, you want to limit the stress on them as much as possible. So techniques that would be traditionally used to dart other mega herbivores like elephant or rhino, so darting from a helicopter, you don't want to do that with wild dogs. I mean, it's a really small animal, historically difficult to dart anyway. Yeah. So darting from a helicopter is just too stressful for them, and to catch an entire pack is also difficult, particularly when they are skittish or
and in
Mapani. So this was essentially used as a last resort to capture an entire pack.
You'd tried call up,
darting from the ground, baiting, or
darting from a helicopter was tried as well.
Yeah. Well, in fact, we darted them from a helicopter to get a collar on because we hadn't been able to get even one individual darted to get the collar on. So eventually, as a last resort, we had to dart an individual from a helicopter to get the collar on, just so we could increase the chances of a smooth net capture, which still has got a lot of.
And net capture, was that Ben's idea?
Yeah, that was Ben's idea. Yeah.
Yeah, geez, it was crazy. So let's have a quick look at some of the stuff that we got up to with the net capture. So basically you're putting drop nets up. And
so like a cargo net almost.
Yeah, so when the animal runs into it, the net sort of just falls on them and gives the capture team on the ground the chance to be able to sort of literally dive on a dog.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, and then so I mean what also makes it a challenging exercise is that the dog's not asleep when it's caught in the net.
Wide awake.
It's wide awake. So, and Joel even had a situation where, we had been trying to catch these dogs for a long time, and this was now the final opportunity and the final chance of catching them. So we're all invested in making sure that every single individual was safely caught. And Dr. Joel Alves got to the one dog, and it had actually got him through the net, and he grabbed onto it. I think the footage,
you'll see,
this footage might be there. I just remember the GoPro connected to Joel and him screaming for help, help! You got to come and help me with this dog. But yeah, I mean, that's the thing. These wild dogs do get themselves into situations where they need a little bit of help. We only do it under certain conditions and extreme scenarios. We don't try and intervene for anything like, as I mentioned previously, natural injuries. And this was one heck of an operation to catch and safely relocate this pack of dogs.
The other thing is that everyone talks about how hard herding cats is. Now try herd wild dogs from a helicopter.
And I think, even though we knew the general area that they were in from the GPS collar, they had moved away, and Jerry McDonald, the helicopter pilot, managed to maneuver them over 2 kilometers to get to the entrance of where this net setup was.
And they split.
Yeah, they had split. Yeah, that's right.
So it was quite a thing. Now, I've spent a lot of time in helicopters, actually a lot of time with Jerry in helicopters, but that was by far the fanciest flying I've experienced in a chopper. Yeah. I don't get airsick and stuff, but I was starting to feel a bit queasy. Jerry was throwing that helicopter around.
And I think Jerry doesn't get all that nervous about maneuvering an animal with a helicopter, but he put all his years of skill to the test to get that done.
Yeah, there we go. You can see, there we go. I think that was the first dog. And you can see there's Joel and there's Ben, and then it's Kobus Roth's team. Came up.
Yeah, the game catcher team. Yeah.
But yeah, so basically then had to go and find the dog again. The dog's the one.
Yeah,
because only one had a collar, so we had to do the collared dog last.
Yeah. So we left, and that was the only dog that was following, the
nice
movement of the
line.
helicopter
Yeah.
in a nice line. Yeah.
So, but it was an absolutely an incredible experience, and I mean the work that went into saving this pack, and then I suppose, and then that kindly Puzamoya let them live there for a while.
Lived there for a while while we were trying to find them homes. Yeah,
Yeah.
in fact, so that pack was split between only one female, a young sub-adult female, and a couple of males. And that female went to one of the range expansion reserves and is doing incredibly well since the release. So we have essentially then, every dog counts, and we saved, just by saving that dog's life, they've now been introduced into another reserve and they're doing well.
There you go. You can see. I mean, that dog is wide awake. That's the one that we nearly got away. The one that nearly got under the net. So there you can see. I think Jolie's giving an injection now.
Yeah. So as soon as they've been caught, or as soon as you've got a hand on them, then they are injected with their just to put them to sleep, so that they calm down as quickly as possible. So within 30 seconds they are relaxed and reduced.
And it was a hot day.
It was.
We had to have ice packs and stuff. So can you believe you got to put ice packs in the armpits of wild dogs
to cool them down. I think we even decided to move them in Graham's green bumper.
It was. They got moved in the back of Graham's Land Rover, the aircon on the wild dogs, because it was a very hot day. Now with all captures and stuff, heat is one of your biggest enemies.
100%. Look, fortunately with wild dogs, there's such they've got such high endurance that, and they are able to cool themselves down a lot quicker than other animals. You could never do a cheetah capture like this because the capture myopathy would result in almost certainly.
I'm not sure everyone knows what capture myopathy is.
So I mean, it's an interesting one. It's essentially a buildup of lactic acid, but wild dogs, because they've got such good endurance, they often don't succumb to capture myopathy. But we're still giving them fluids and cooling them down, oxygen. So this is an extreme situation to essentially save this pack of wild dogs' life.
And then what Ben was doing there looked quite strange. He was rubbing a dog, but that was for anti-poaching dog training.
Yeah.
To give a scent detection dog to learn the wild dog scent. There's lots of incredible things that happen. I'd forgotten about that completely.
Yeah, look, I mean, there's things happening all the time, and it's always busy. But it's, this is Painted Dog TV gives us the opportunity to show people the behind the scenes. There's things happening all the time. And as conservationists, we inherently bad in telling our story because we just want to get the job done.
Yeah.
And that's why, once again, just have to always thank Brent and Painted Dog TV and the viewers and followers for giving us the opportunity to share what is being done to save South Africa's most endangered carnivore.
It is absolutely amazing. Now, as I said, they got moved in the green mamba, and then part of the range expansion program. And so far, we haven't had too many dogs. Oh, there were some dogs up that side recently again, but they didn't go through there, did they?
No, so it was towards Gravelot side. They'd gone through that area. Yeah, in fact, it's
there you go, being loaded into the landy.
That pack at the moment is a pack that we, once again, not collared. Two individuals that have found each other, formed a new pack, and are denning in that area. So that's the next mission to get a collar on that pack.
And of course, I mean, an uncollared pack is quite a challenge to find, even if they are denning.
No, 100%. And we're talking about what's been done in the last couple of weeks, and what we're going to talk about later in the show. A big part of these collars now is to increase efficiency with getting to dogs that have got caught in snares, or they find themselves in a high risk area. And this is linked to a monitoring platform now, which with Dr. Louis van Skalkwyk and John Griever from Contemplate Wild. So it's a fairly new organization that looking at improving technology for wild dogs, and even our collars over the years. The cost of the collars and the frequency of the downloads we've constantly been working on. So now the new collars, which are solar powered, we're getting downloads every 10 minutes, which is compared to a satellite collar from a couple of years ago, where you're only getting a download every hour.
For a second. But yeah, amazing stuff that the guys are working on. It's solar-powered collars with more information, and information is key. But you'll find out more after the break.
Dear future filmmakers, Africa is calling. It's time to reawaken your wild. Painted Dog TV is offering an internship unlike any other. Join our pack and see the world through a whole new lens. Live and work in the beating heart of the South African bush. And become part of our mission to share it with the world. For the love of wildlife. For the storytellers of our future. Painted Dog TV internships.
Welcome back, everyone. Yeah, we actually might even run out of time tonight because we've got so much to talk about. But before we carry on, now we're talking about the collars and stuff, and of course, we decided to do something that most people would think is a bit crazy a few years ago, and that was to attempt to live stream the collaring of a pack that didn't have a collar.
Yeah, look, I mean, Brent, you are ambitious, but sometimes I really don't know why I agreed to do any of these things, because that was probably the most stressful wild dog collaring of my life. And of course, it's never going to go according to plan. We spent hours looking for those dogs.
So it started off the day before.
Day before, yeah.
And we found them.
And they were in a perfect place. We had stayed with them. Obviously, wild dogs are crepuscular, so that means that they only hunt just after sunrise, or they're most active just after sunrise and just before sunset, and they don't often move around late at night. So we had found them the evening before in a perfect area. We were going to be able to locate them. It was going to be perfect. All the stars were aligning, and then, of course, the next morning, before first night,
out of season
rain came
through. So we couldn't even see tracks the next day,
and then proceeded to have to spend the entire day looking for the dogs. So, with your followers once again, all over the world, waking up in the middle of the night to come and watch this live collaring, and we spent the entire day looking for the dogs.
And we covered a lot of thorny bush that day.
We did.
And then we were all like,
spread out all over the place. Had they moved? Had they gone into a reserve next door?
We checked boundaries to make sure they hadn't gone through the fence, just looking for tracks. And then we did a couple of live broadcasts through the day, just say, guys, we're still looking.
Yeah.
We're still looking, and we're still looking. And then in the afternoon, we got a call from one of we were sitting next to one of the thorny bush guys.
Yeah.
And he had a radio. And someone said, oh, guys, there's a nyala or an impala in a dam. And we were like, knew that it had to be the dogs.
100%. Raced over there.
And we were, of course,
on the other side.
We were actually near Makani Gate with Timbavati. And we had to rush through. And then, here's Ben going to put the darts in. So I think our first broadcast was like 7 in the morning, and the dart went in at about 6 that night. Yeah. And that is the same dog we saw in the footage earlier,
interacting with the hyenas.
Yeah. You'll see that very pretty, which is white.
And then it's also, so that dog was collared in 2021. We've actually replaced the collar on that dog since then, because the batteries only lasted a certain number of months with those satellite collars. But it's just an indication that the collar doesn't have any effect on the wild dog. That we ensure that the weight of the collar is not weighing the dog down or affecting them. And you can see that collared dog now this week interacting with those hyenas, and it's been collared for over 3 years. It's not having any negative effect on the individual or the animal whatsoever.
No, I think that day, shame, we had so many people helping Thorny Bush, the individual lodges, the canine guys. Yeah. There was literally was an army out there looking for the dogs. And they'd literally been seen every single day, all the time for like the 10 days leading up to it. They were like, okay, we've got a chance at this. But yeah, it was really, really special to be able to do that. Now, while the footage of this is playing, because otherwise we're going to run out of time, we're going to sort of move into the meat, so to speak, of what the problems are facing dogs at the moment. Of course, natural predation like lions and leopards and pythons on puppies and stuff, that's part of being out in the bush. However, the collars, and particularly the new collars that are able to download so quickly, are creating a lot more information and making it much easier for you and the vets and stuff to help dogs that are caught in snares.
Yeah. And then, I mean, unfortunately, so look, let's take a step backwards. Snares are not set for wild dogs.
No.
They're indiscriminate, you know, and that's part of the problem. And they're set for bushmeat, so they're targeting antelope species such as impala, where then wild dogs, if an impala is caught in a snare, the wild dogs are then following up, you know, opportunistically and trying to get an easy meal. But then wild dogs are, because of their pack structures, because they hunt in groups, because they're moving in groups, when there's a snare line set, it's not one snare that's set. It's a number of
70, 80, 90.
100%. So, you know, it's difficult to quantify, and there's these hotspot areas that we've detected. So in Northern Kruger National Park at the moment, there's a hotspot area, and the collars, particularly when it's a large snare set for larger animals like buffalo, the collar is not necessarily going to save the dog from being caught in the snare.
Often, I
mean, we had shared it recently in terms of the efforts and attempts that were put into darting a wild dog in Northern Kruger National Park that had a snare around the waist. But when a collared individual is killed in the snare and there's no collar in the pack, it just makes finding them so much harder, particularly when they're denning. And if they're denning in a hotspot area, that's even more of a risk, because now they're moving in an area that there's a lot of snares in, and the likelihood of the dog getting caught in the snare is quite high. So this particular pack, more than 5 individuals have been caught in snares in the last couple of months, and you know that is a massive concern with the increase in number of snares that are being set, and it's also linked with, you know, the global economy. And I think everyone can appreciate that the cost of living, the cost of food, the cost of everything is going up. And as a result of that, then the cost of, or the frequency of snaring is going up. And unfortunately, we are seeing that to have not a negative effect of the population yet, but with wild dogs, every individual wild dog still does count. So Dr. Louis van Skalkwijk, over that, this is now over a 3-week period, it's 5 individual wild dogs that have been caught in snares. Fortunately, we were able to get to all 5 of them, even though that pack didn't have a collar on. So we managed to recollar the pack, and unfortunately, because it had taken us so long to find that individual, for the first time for both myself and Louis, we actually had to euthanize that wild dog because of the severity of the wounds.
Had it gone right into the spinal?
No, it was around the waist, so it had cut through into the spinal column, and you know, the decision was made humanely to euthanize the dog, which fortunately had got it, you know, out of its pain. But it's just something that's not nice to see, and we want to get to every single wild dog, but we can't plan for how many dogs there are going to be caught in snares, or how many snares they're going to be, and that's sort of part of the issue now. You know, from a funding point of view, I mean, I think that week between Louis and I, or this last month, chasing after snares, we've done more than 7,000 kilometers in Greater Kruger National Park chasing after snares, and it costs money, you know.
So that is the auction later on this evening. All the money that is raised from the auction of the print, and thank to Margot for the Remembering Wild Dog book, will be going specifically to helping Louis and Grant with the snares in Kruger at the moment. Because, I mean, sometimes you get a snare in the south of the Kruger, and then the next one's at Punda Maria.
Yeah, that's exactly as it was. The one was in Punda Maria, which is 7.5 hours drive from Skukuza. The next day, it was in Pretoria's Kop, you know. Yeah. So it's more than 300 kilometers apart that you're having to get to these dogs. It's covering large distances. And then the collars, as I say, are a huge help. So,
but also, the collars, just the collar data, you can now, from behavior that you're picking up off the collar, tell if there's not even that dog snared, but an individual in the pack is snared.
100%, once again, because of the pack structure and you know, the fact that the bonds are so strong, even if it isn't the collared dog that's in the snare, it's keeps coming back to that pack, you know, to that individual. So we can see that, as I say, linked to that monitoring platform, that when they go into this high snare risk area, we get an alert, so we are aware of it a lot quicker than we would have been relying on just a tourist to report it or getting a sighting of the dog. We're getting that information a lot quicker. And then EWT's also got the Birds of Prey program, which is looking at using vultures as sentinels, tracking vultures.
John and I chatted about this week.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're starting to, snaring is a problem, but with all these tools and the technology, we are able to at least intervene, and it's successful, but we just have to keep the finger on the pulse, so to say, to increase the opportunity. And, we've got amazing donors, supporters within EWT that cover the costs of the collars, but it's just the last couple of weeks there's been an increase, and we don't ever want funding to be the reason why we can't get to a dog.
Exactly. And that's one of the incredible things about our pack members, that we are able to help when we can. But yeah, so it's going to be quite an undertaking. And I said, now with the population expanding, there are obviously more dogs to look after, which is a good
100%.
thing, and also something that causes a bit of difficulty.
It is indeed, but I wouldn't do anything else.
Yeah.
So
That is also true.
we keep on keeping on.
Yeah. So and I mean, I suppose it's quite a complicated one, because this is probably a push on from COVID as well.
100%.
So I mean, if we take from before COVID, the amount of snarings that were happening to afterwards, the amount of snares that are being set in areas that weren't traditionally sort of hotspots.
Yeah.
So as I say, it's tough out there for a lot of people, and that people need to eat and stuff. Obviously, it's a much bigger problem, and at the moment we can be reactive, but hopefully through all the different partners we'll find some sort of solution to the bigger problem. But that'll take a bit of time. So for now, we just really have to sort of be on top of it.
Yeah, 100%. And look, so we're giving information to a broad range of stakeholders, and SAM parks are increasing monitoring in particular areas, removing snares. When a snare line is set, and like the vulture sort of eye in the sky, what is called, you mentioned you're going to speak, you've spoken to John and Gareth about it, but as more information comes in, the intention is to get a step ahead, and that is happening. Rangers are removing snares and clearing areas constantly, but we just have to take as much information as we can from all the technology and knowledge and research that we're doing and feed it back in, and hopefully can decrease it as opposed to being reactive. That's the long-term goal, to be able to reduce the snaring as opposed to just being reactive to it.
100%, and that is a massive undertaking. And you say there's a lot of stakeholders in it, and often sandparks gets a bad rap, but remember, they've got to look after over 2 million acres, and it's a long boundaries and lots of very difficult, very expensive to monitor that whole area constantly. But we are definitely, with the collars and the new collars that Louis's been developing and stuff, you are seeing a far greater success rate.
100%.
Which is absolutely amazing. And now, of course, to find out more about that type of stuff, you can get hold of us, and Grant is always happy to chat about that. You can also come on a wild dog conservation safari with Grant and I. Although the last one, poor Barbara, we couldn't find a dog between us for anything. We did eventually, but normally we see dogs every day, and this time it took us 4 days.
4 or 5 days,
to find a dog, and we covered a lot of distance. And of course, in partnership with Remembering Wildlife next year, we're going to be having a whole wild dog focused conservation safari with Grant, myself and Margot in the Conservationist Game Reserve at Walkers. So we're very excited about that. So that's going to be another way you can help contribute and actually get out here, come see the dogs, meet Grant, come on safari with us. It is quite fun. Grant and I do talk a lot, so there's lots of stories to be had in the long drives between dogs, if we can find them, of course. So it is going to be a very, very exciting year next year, and going forward with all the different projects, particularly wild dogs that we're going to be involved in.
100%.
Very excited.
It always is exciting, isn't it?
Yeah. As I say, I still get excited when I smell a wild dog. And they've got such a distinctive smell. How would you describe the smell of wild dogs?
It's a question that gets asked quite often. I think musky is...
Musky.
Yeah.
I just say it's the smell of excitement. When you smell that, you know
something's going to happen as well.
You know that they are very, very exciting. So we are going to go have a look at your photos next. So quite exciting that. So of course, if you don't know how to get your photo on the show, you need to download the Painted Dog TV app. We do realize that there are people in the States having a bit of problem with the app at the moment. We have spoken to our tech developers, and they are working on rectifying that. But yes, so you just go into your photos and videos, pop your photo there, and that is where one of our team will grab the photos that will be shown on the show every week. So very, very exciting. So I'm quite excited to see what it is. Now remember, your photos don't only have to be from Africa. They can be from your back garden, wildlife, wherever you are, or wherever else you might have traveled. Okay, Maddie, are we going straight to photos? There we go. Oh, I can't see this one. Ah, hello, Sue. Oh, that's beautiful. There's a shark eggs in the Cape. Look at that. They are fascinating things, shark eggs. Generally attached to kelp. Looking at the size of them and where they are, they might even be pajama shark eggs, but I might be guessing. Attached to the kelp in the Cape. Pajama sharks are very cool.
I've never seen
a
shark
pajama
egg.
You haven't you? Oh, no, I've seen a few. But yeah, those pajama sharks that live in the kelp around the Cape are very, very pretty. Okay, what we got next? Oh, it's a snake. Julie. Can't see which snake. Looks like maybe a marble tree snake. Oh, can't see it. Might have to get up and have a look to try to see which snake it is. Can't see the eyes. Yeah, marble tree snake is my guess. Or brown house snake. Sorry. Marble tree snake. Brown house snake. Yeah, I couldn't see properly. It was a bit small on our screen. Very nice. So obviously that was while you were visiting us here, Julie. You got to see a snake. I'm quite happy since we've moved here. I haven't had to catch a snake in some time. I spent a lot of time catching snakes at Pridelands. Okay, what we got next? Oh, one of my favorites. One of my favorites, a Luna moth. Actually seen, when was the last one? I saw one this year. And who's that from? I can't see there. Trefoil, a Luna moth, yeah. Connecticut in the USA. It's crazy. We get the same species here out in Africa of the Luna moth. It is one of the emperor. It's a part of the emperor moth family. Absolutely gorgeous. It always fascinates me when you get something like that. I mean, it occurs in Connecticut and it occurs in South Africa. I've seen them in Kenya and Tanzania. Very, very cool. Okay, Maddie, have we got any more? Ah, they're coming. Okay, so there are a few more. Let's see. I always like this because I don't know what they are. Looks like there we go. A male northern cardinal from Michael. Very, very pretty bird. I've seen cardinals when I was in the States.
In the States.
Yeah, very, very pretty. Now, my US bird list is not so hot. I got very excited the first time I saw a Canada goose in Seattle. Everyone thought I was mad. Trash bird all over the place. I'm like, oh, Canada goose! But yeah, the cardinal's very, very pretty, obviously in his breeding plumage there. No, but yeah. Oh, this is the thing, there's so much to see all over the world there.
It is indeed.
Yeah. But I don't think I could ever sort of give up Africa. Okay, let's see what's next. That is, wow. Leopard and, is it lion? Leopard and hyena. Fighting over an impala carcass from Betty. That's a really fantastic sighting. And it is amazing to watch the interactions between the different carnivores, well, particularly the smaller ones. The lions are just bullies. And although enough hyenas together, I'll give a lion a go. But there is, with leopards and hyenas and wild dogs and hyenas, I've seen moments when they are sort of almost nose to nose.
Yeah, they almost got a mutual respect for each other, but they still push the boundaries. If the boundaries are pushed, then
yes, then there's a reaction.
Something's going to go down.
Okay. Well, that was absolutely amazing. Please remember to keep sending in your photos and videos onto the app. But for now, we're going to go take a short break. spoilt here on the Rietspruit Reserve. How awesome is that, guys? Right past the front of our truck. Look at that, everybody. They are just unreal. Welcome back. Now, we've chatted about what's been happening here in the Lowveld and that, but of course part of EWT's bigger project with wild dogs, which almost all wild dogs are included in, is the range expansion program.
Yeah, so the range expansion project falls under WAG, which is the Wild Dog Advisory Group, and it's coordinated by Cole Duplessis, colleague of mine. And yeah, I mean, essentially that project was established in 1998 to develop or to establish a population separate to Kruger's population, because Kruger has always been and is still the only viable single, well, most contiguous population in South Africa. So it was to establish a second population, and it's done so well that then eventually the project got to the point where we started introducing wild dogs outside of South Africa. So Gorongosa is one of those reserves in Mozambique. The first introduction into Mozambique, and they've done incredibly well. There's more than 100 wild dogs now in Gorongosa, and the project's going from strength to strength and continues to look at opportunities to introduce wild dogs further abroad. There's always, given the nature of wild dogs in small protected areas with lower lion densities, when they breed well, they unfortunately run out of space, you know. And so even with all the threats that wild dogs are facing, the two biggest threats are still habitat destruction, which is causing fragmentation of habitats and suitable areas that wild dogs can thrive in, and even all these small fenced off reserves that act as a meta population. The wild dogs are monitored and maintained as a single population in these separate populations, but then when they breed and they do well, the areas become too small to sustain the population, and they have to be introduced into areas elsewhere. And that's part of what the range expansion project does.
And we were lucky enough to spend some time with, Cole did come up for that.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah. So in the Waterberg region of South Africa, at Lapalala, where there was a pack, quite a unique pack genetically from my understanding. We got to put up a camera above a den.
Yeah, and that's the thing. When wild dogs are being introduced into a new reserve, there's the process of bonding them if it's a newly formed pack, which we've done as well. And then the opportunity to sort of get behind the scenes, where the camera was put up before the dogs were put in the boma or the temporary holding facility, and these dogs denned in the boma. And once again, Painted Dog TV coming to the party to get some amazing footage of wild dogs and their pups emerging from the den for the first time.
And they were tiny little things. Now, some of these dogs, I think, have gone as far afield as Malawi.
Yes, they have. That's true. Yeah.
And so the range expansion program is obviously incredibly important. So I mean, what's about 6,000 dogs left in Africa?
Yeah, 5,500 to 6,000 left.
And then I know EWT shared yesterday that the map of the previous distribution versus current distribution and how fragmented those populations are. So in viable breeding populations, there's really Kruger. Well, in southern Africa, it's sort of Kruger and sort of northern Botswana. Into Zimbabwe. In Zambia, that's the Kafui population.
Yeah, South Luangwa.
And South Luangwa into Lower Zambezi, Mana Pools.
Yeah.
And then that southern Tanzania into northern Mozambique, Nyasa and Selous.
Yeah.
And then everywhere else, it's pretty much just fragments. So yeah, it is quite scary.
It is.
Although I had some exciting news. I don't know if you saw about those dogs in Chinko.
Yes, in
Central
West
African
Africa,
Republic. Yeah, doing very well.
They are doing well. Look, I mean, and that's the thing. Once again, there's in Africa, there's still uncharted and unexplored areas where that's another. I mean, we mentioned about it earlier about where else can we go and look for dogs, and there are still areas, particularly in areas like Central Africa that do have populations, but not a lot is known about them. Where a lot of research and conservation work that's done in Kruger National Park now, for example, we would like to use that knowledge that we've learned and implement it in other areas in Africa as well.
Because I think there's some Cameroon, Benin.
Yeah.
Oh, I really want to get up there. But yes, so very exciting. Remember to join us shortly for the auction. We're going to be auctioning off this beautiful print that I actually took with Grant in Kruger. It was my favorite puppy amongst them.
Yeah, maybe we should speak about that because it is. I mean, I've seen a lot of wild dogs, but it definitely seems like this pup has to grow into his ears still, and that's why Brent took the photo.
It looks like Mickey Mouse.
I mean, obviously, wild dogs are known for their big ears, but a really unique.
That puppy his ears were twice the size as the other puppies. But yeah, so don't forget to join us for that. That'll be in a few minutes. Oh, not even a few minutes. But again, it's been absolutely wonderful having you here on That's Wild. And a big thank you to our sponsors, Rogue, Stanley, Dunlop. I'm forgetting one person, Led Lenza. Thank you very much, and I'm glad you guys enjoyed. And we will see you next week, where we'll be talking vultures. Okay, welcome back. We've got that out. Oh, that's blown out. Let's move our little wild dog friend there. So there we go. So the auction is going to take place on the main YouTube feed. I'm going to open it up now. We haven't opened it just yet. What is going on here? There we go. Okay, so welcome everyone. That is the photograph of Mickey, the wild dog, with its massive ears. So who would like to make the opening bid on the print? Now, of course, included in that will be shipping to wherever you are and a Remembering Wild Dog book. And for those of you, if you want to wait a little bit, Margot will be coming out to visit us in November. Yeah. So if you would prefer a signed copy, Margot has graciously said she will sign as well. So who would like to open the bidding? And as I said, the bidding will be on the main YouTube chat. So on the main chat, and then there will be bidding via email as well for those who would like to bid anonymously. Charles is keeping a look on that, so he will let me know. Am I pushing the right thing? Let's go. Oh, messages. There we go. Okay, so for those of you who are on the pack stream, Charles has put a link through in case you have bid there. I will double check. So unfortunately, we were going to try to do it on the app, but as I said, there's been a problem with everyone in the States being able to access the app. But it should be. There, Steffi Marks, thank you very much. Hi. Steffi, Melita Pack. Steffi has opened the bid at $250.
Thank you, Steffi.
Thank you very much, Steffi. That's absolutely amazing. That's really, really, really generous. Thank you so much. I know Charles is checking on the emails and stuff like that, so he'll let me know. But as I said, we will keep the bid open. You just need to email info@paintedDog.tv for those who'd like to bid anonymously. That'll stay open for 24 hours. You know what? I might actually have to bid on my own picture and put it up in my house. There we go. Oh, we go. Mary, 275. Thank you, Mary.
Thank you, Mary.
Absolutely wonderful.
And maybe just to remind people that it's about...
Yes, this is going to the snare.
Specifically for snaring, with the increased amount of dogs being snared and the travel between packs across the Greater Kruger National Park to remove snares. This is the funds being generated here are going to go directly towards that.
It is, and as I said, poor Grant and Louis, it's 7,000 kilometers. What's that in miles? Probably 3,000 something miles. That's this month alone. Yeah. That's just this month alone. And obviously we want to get to all those dogs as fast as possible and get those snares off. But yeah, that's absolutely great. So we got our top bid so far, Mary, at $275. Thank you very much, Mary. And as I said, those who want to bid anonymously, you can do so via email info@painteddog.tv. And this will stay open for 24 hours from now, so Charles will be keeping a look out on all of that. Now, while we wait for more bids to come in, has anyone got any questions for Grant? Now is a good time to ask questions of Grant. Thank you so much, Margot. Margot said whatever the winning bid is, Remembering Wildlife will match to add to the snare removal fund.
Thank you so much, Margot.
Thank you, Margot. That is absolutely amazing. We really appreciate that. That is incredible. We're very lucky to work with Remembering Wildlife and Margot. And I know we've done quite a lot. Well, with the Wild Dog book, Margot even came out with us, and we got to see a den.
And of course, given a lot of support in the terms of funds raised through the book, and the series as a whole. And just thank you very much, Margot, for always supporting the conservation work that all of us as conservationists do.
Yeah, and absolutely amazing. Over £1 million.
Unbelievable.
Yes, and as I said, those are not Egyptian pounds or Central African pounds. They are great British pounds. They tend to go a little bit further than the Egyptian pound. Okay, yeah. So we'll keep going. As I said, we'll keep going for a few more minutes. So any questions for Grant? Now is your time. Open to questions. Mary's was asking. We have a $500 bid via email. Thank you, Charles. Wow, that's amazing. That's absolutely incredible, guys. Jennifer Harding, in the absence of bidding, is there any way we can send a donation for the snare removal program? Yes. Email Charles, so email at info@painteddog.tv, and Charles will let you know how you can just make a donation in the absence of bidding. Thank you very much, Jennifer. Well done. Thank you so much, whoever did that, the $500.
Yes, thank you very much.
That's absolutely amazing. Michael's got a question for you, Grant. Do the EWT have any initiatives with the communities outside these protected areas when it comes to wild dogs, or are they not as much as an issue as other predators?
So we do. We have a full-time sort of community liaison officer that works specifically for the Carnival Conservation Program. But the community in terms of human-wildlife conflict or human-wild-dog conflict in the Greater Kruger is not as much as... In fact, we haven't had any direct threats to wild dogs as a result of them going through rural communities. But we do have an ongoing project that looks at education and awareness around the conservation of African wild dogs. Yes.
Steffi would like to know, how much does a collar cost? So there's different types of collars.
Yeah, so there are different types of collars, and as I say, we've sort of shifted to these new collars with the solar panels. A satellite collar, it's still imperative in remote areas of Kruger, costs between 38,000 Rand and 60,000 Rand, depending on the type of collar we're using. And then the new collars, about 20,000 Rand.
Yeah.
But those new
so
collars...
60,000, so I'm just... Someone do the maths for me inside in dollars and let me know.
The new collars that we're using are linked to a ground-based network, which is instead of...
Oh, wait, we got 400 pounds.
Oh, wow, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Judith. Apparently it beats $500 by $3. So here we go, 400 pounds. Thank you very much, Judith.
Yeah, so the cost of the collars do vary depending on the type of collar we're using, and the new solar-powered collars are slightly cheaper, but that's linked to a base station that's on the ground.
So the infrastructure setup is more
than the initial collar. In fact, the cost of a base station or repeater is the same as the satellite collar that we were previously using. And
remembering has
donated
towards those base stations.
100%.
This is an interesting question from Wide-Eyed. When you remove snares, do you ever encounter immediate negative or reactive anger from the local communities that have been setting the snares?
No, not particularly. I mean, I think the communities or the individuals that are setting the snares, in most cases, realize that they're going into a protected area and it's illegal. So there hasn't really been backlash from snares that have been removed. No.
Okay, so I didn't hear from them, so I'm going to say the satellite collar you said is 60,000 Rand, more or less, which is $3,221, and then the new
solar collars are around 20,000 Rand.
Are around $1,100. So there we go. So that is that. There we go. As Charles said here, if you don't win on the bid, but you would still like to contribute to the snare removal fund, please just email info@paintthedog.tv. Charles will walk you through it. And those who need, what are they called? I've forgotten.
Section 18A.
There we go. Section 18A, stuff for the donations for tax reasons and stuff, will help you with all of that type of stuff. So absolutely wonderful. And as I said, we'll take, I think, one or two more questions, and then I think Grant and I are going to have an apple juice.
Yeah.
Well,
after a long week.
What's it, a wheat juice? What do they make whiskey out of? Michael's got one here. Would the way of integrating different wild dogs work for other social animals like a lioness? No. Or the rubbing? Oh, I don't think so. I don't know.
I actually don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think so though. Because of the way dispersal and stuff works in lions. I think it works because you've got same-sex dispersals in dogs.
In dogs, and also because, it probably actually comes more down to the breeding dynamics. Yeah. Whereas if a new lion comes into, if a new male comes into a pride, infanticide, they're going to kill their pups. Whereas with wild dogs, because they're cooperative breeders, they all help raise the pups. That kind of allows you to integrate new individuals into the pack. So I don't think so.
Yeah, I think all would happen is they would kill each other.
Yeah.
Or they would fight. Yeah, so I think it's more to do with the social structure and the cooperative breeding.
The fact that they're cooperative breeders.
And also, wild dogs, when they form new packs or you have same-sex dispersals. Yeah. So 2 boys or 3 boys. Yeah.
Natural pack formations. Yeah.
Whereas lion prides are generally $600 over email. There we go. Wow,
thank you very
guys.
much.
Thank you very, very much. Bob's, I'm going to get your question in a second. Yeah, so this is a good one from Bob. Do you have a program in place for rabies, parvo, distemper outbreaks?
Yes, so Louis, who's the state vet, as their general role would be disease control. Whenever we do dart a wild dog for whatever reason, to collar, to remove a snare, they are getting vaccinated. And then following the outbreak in 2016, where we had an intensive vaccination campaign in response to that, then the State Veterinary Department is also working in communities outside.
That's actually the more important
That's
part.
the more important, to vaccinate domestic dogs against rabies and canine distemper. And then, in fact, interestingly, at the time when we were doing the vaccination campaign for canine distemper and rabies following the outbreak, it was actually realized that the canine distemper vaccine didn't work. The dogs didn't seroconvert. So we're currently implementing a project in collaboration with a PhD student, Dr. Marty Rubin, who's looking at, and Luby van Skalkwyk is also involved, and Rosie Woodruff from Oxford is looking at a new vaccine, and we're doing a vaccination trial on wild dogs again in Kruger National Park as a result of that, because the previous canine distemper vaccine didn't work. So there's ongoing work to ensure that if there is another outbreak, that we can sort of mitigate the effects of that outbreak.
Absolutely amazing. Well, yeah, and I mean, a lot of the groundbreaking work done with dogs and stuff like that is done in Kruger and in South Africa.
100%.
Yeah, and it's amazing that hopefully all the things we learn we can share with everyone else in Africa, and one day we can maybe get more than 10,000 wild dogs running around in the bush. But as I said, guys, the bid, well, the auction will be open for another 24 hours in case someone who didn't get to join us live wants to join, and that will be operating via email. And thank you very much for those who've bid. And again, if you can't make the winning bid, but you would like to contribute to the snare removals and the costs of those operations, please just email info@painteddog.tv. Let's see if I can let this go. Yes. And so thank you very much to my dear friend Grant.
Thank you, Brent,
for joining us. And
always a pleasure to be here.
Big thank you to everyone out there. Oh, wait. I have one last present for you.
For me?
Yes, for you. Ashley, can you bring me that thing in the box that has bright lights? One last present. info@painteddog.tv at Trefoil. There we go. Thank you very much. And this is obviously from one of our sponsors, the incredible people at Lead Lenser, at Awesome Tools. So Grant can have a big torch like us now.
Thank you very much, Brent.
So especially a lot of the times you get stuck out there at night and that, and when you're working on dogs, you don't want the lions to sneak up on you. So Lead Lenser, thank you very much for this. And here we go.
Thank you, Lead Lenser. Thank you, Brent, and Painted Dog TV. Thank you all the followers for also the support and constantly asking questions and wanting information. It really is important to us to get the word out there about protecting South Africa's most endangered carnivore.
100%. Thank you, my friend, and thank you again, everyone, for joining us tonight. And we will see you next week for another episode of That's Wild, and we'll be chatting to one of your colleagues, John Davies from Endangered Wildlife Trust, on the vultures. So very interesting how the collar data from the backpacks from the vultures is working in simultaneously with the wild dogs. With the wild dogs, and even with the lions.
100%.
Yeah, so very, very interesting stuff. And again, a massive thank you to Stanley, Lead Lenser, Rogue, Dunlop, for all the incredible goodies they give us and helping guys like Grant to be able to do their work. Thanks very much, guys. Good night.
Thanks. Bye. Good night.
Getting ready for the elephant collar removal. Matt is on camera, Yuka's
ひろこちゃん
presenting,
ちょいちょいもう Vlog の声
and
入れながら撮っ
Ashley
とい
is a
て。
dish.